What is going on, everyone? This is Eric coming at you live from just outside of Hartford, Connecticut. And today, we are going to be looking at the NASCAR playoffs, how the season's gone so far, and the 16 drivers who qualified for the playoffs. Now, you might be wondering, why am I simming a hockey game? Long story short, when I tried to sim the NASCAR games, the server would continuously crash for me. And I said, alright, I haven't done a hockey sim in a long time, so might as well do this. And technically, yes, while the Avalanche are the home team, I have them wearing their old school road jerseys. So I know that, it's just I didn't want both teams wearing white jerseys for simple reasons. But anyways, I have been definitely following the NASCAR Cup season this whole year. I'm excited. I really have enjoyed it. So this video is just going to be me kind of looking at how everyone has been doing so far this year. And the 16 drivers who made the playoffs. And of course, we'll talk about the notable guys who missed the playoffs. Of course, if you're a NASCAR fan, you do know the main one I'm talking about. But without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss the 16 drivers that made it in order of their points entering the season. So that'll be kind of fun. Or their points entering the playoffs, I should say. So anyway, without further ado, we will jump right in. We'll start with the guy who's currently the favorite, and that's going to be Chase Elliott. Now, Elliott is the only driver who had more than 2 wins this year, as he had 4 of them. He won some very good races, but he did have a slower start to the year. People were starting to get concerned with him. He won at Martinsville, a good Saturday race. It was a fun race to watch, excluding the fact that Elliott won. I'm not an Elliott fan, as you all know. Then he got ice cold after that, but then he caught on fire, and he won at Road America, and he won at Atlanta the next week. I mean, it's a road course in the super speedway, so is what it is. And then he would win at Watkins Glen, so that wasn't last week, but the week before. So he has 4 wins on the season, and it's not like he's been bad or anything. Obviously, he's been very good. He does sit in first place right now. He won 4 poles, so it's not like he's not doing anything. He has 10 top 5s, 17 top 10s, so he's definitely ready to go. There's a reason he's the favorite. He's been the hottest driver for a bit right now, and it's exciting to watch him race, not unless you're like me and you're not a fan of Elliott, but he definitely is the favorite right now to win the championship, I guess, for lack of a better word, especially since the final track is going to be a very Chase Elliott friendly track, of course, in Phoenix. So this will be exciting regardless, but Chase Elliott will definitely be Hendrick Motorsports' best chance to win the championship. And that's kind of surprising, seeing as they do have the defending champion, but we will get to him in a little bit. So after Chase Elliott, in second place right now, you currently have Joey Logano. Now, Logano is my favorite driver. If you have watched NASCAR videos before, you know this. And Logano does race for Team Penske, so definitely a Penske fan because of this. But Logano's a guy who, he has looked very good in recent weeks, but he has his inconsistencies as well. Now, he of course won the Clash at the Coliseum. That doesn't count for this, but it's still worth noting. Now, he had a slower start to the year, and then he kind of caught fire. Started doing good once he got into the small, short track, Martinsville, Bristol dirt race. He would win his first race of the year at Darlington in early May. Fun race to watch. Yes, he did bump William Byron out of the way to get the win. Fact of the matter is, Byron was messing with him the whole race. Byron was bumping him the whole race, so it was justified. Had to put that out there. A few weeks later, he did win in St. Louis at the Worldwide Technology Raceway. That's a very Penske-friendly, Ford-friendly racetrack. So, yeah, he has won 2 races this year. He had a stretch between the Indianapolis Road Course and then Watkins Glen, so 4 races, where he finished top 6 in all 4 of those races. He finished 12th yesterday in Daytona. Not necessarily his fault. He had the best car. He just got collected by, I believe it was Buescher. So, he was looking good. Logano, he only has 1 pole on the year, but sometimes poles don't necessarily matter. It's just worth noting he had a good qualifying car that day. 7 top 5s and 12 top 10s. So Logano is going to be a force to be reckoned with, especially since some of these tracks coming up in the playoffs are Logano-friendly tracks. Of course, Darlington, Kansas, Bristol, the round of 16, all those tracks Logano's usually good at. His concern is going to be around a 12. That's when you have Texas, Talladega, and Charlotte Motor Speedway, the Roval. The Roval he has a shot at, but Texas he's usually good at. It's just Talladega's a shot in the dark. Uh, we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to Logano. I hope he can get another championship. Then you have everyone's most random driver. You either love him or you hate him this year, and that's Ross Chastain. Now, Chastain in Trackhouse Racing completely came out of nowhere this year. No one was expecting them to do what they've done. He had a slower start to the year, and by that I mean his first 2 races. He came in last in the Daytona 500, and he just got a top 30 in the second race in California. But after that, he caught on absolute fire, getting 3rd in Las Vegas, 2nd in Phoenix, 2nd in Atlanta, and then winning the Circuit of the Americas. Now, of course, that was an interesting race. He was leading for towards the end, and then Bowman, Allmendinger, and him kind of got tangled up. He managed to get the win. Bowman probably could have won had he not been collected by Allmendinger. Allmendinger was pushed out of the way by Chastain, but he did push Chastain first, so it was justified. Bowman just got caught up in the crossfire. I remember watching it. But it was a great first win for him. And then a month later, he did win in Talladega, but this was a win that he kind of backed into, you could say. He was just kind of there. He was in the right place at the right time with a wreck. So, but still, a win is a win regardless. You can't take it away from him. And he was on fire. Then you had a stretch there starting in June where for 6 straight races he finished top 10, the lowest being 8th place twice. But since then, you got to Pocono, didn't do good. Indianapolis Road Course, didn't do good. Michigan, didn't do good. Richmond, barely made the top 20. And then Watkins Glen, barely missed the top 20. Yesterday in Daytona, he got collected in a wreck, got 33rd. So, I mean, he's on a cold streak right now, and that's probably for the best for everyone. But it's a team that everyone kind of knows, hey, Trackhouse Racing has a chance to either be elite or they're going to struggle. And no one expected them to be this. It's been arguably the most consistent driver, or the best driver outside of Chase Elliott. Speaks volumes for a lot of things. There's some truck backing up near me. I don't know if you guys can hear the beeping. I'm just apologize for that in advance if we can. But, I mean, Ross Chastain, obviously the most notable thing about Chastain this year, other than, of course, his 2 wins, is how he's been driving. Very aggressive driver. I mean, he pissed off pretty much every Toyota. He's pissed off Denny Hamlin. I mean, we saw that multiple times. He pissed off Kyle Busch. He pissed off, I know Chase Elliott's a Chevy, but he pissed off Chase Elliott. So, it's going to be interesting to see if he finds himself in a situation where he needs a win to move on. I'm willing to bet no driver is going to be willing to help him out. I'm willing to bet if someone sees a chance to take him out, someone like, hypothetically, Denny Hamlin has a win in the round of 16, and he has a chance to dump Ross Chastain, he's going to do it. Just to say, don't mess with us. This is our sport. Regardless, great year for Ross Chastain, no matter what happens. 4th place, we had Kyle Larson. Now, Larson, just like Chastain and Logano, has a pair of wins on the year. Now, he was the guy who won the Cup Series last year. He had an amazing year last season, and he ran with it. Come to find out here, we get to the Daytona 500. He started on the pole, but he ended up getting collected in a wreck, ended his night early. He rebounded, though. He would win in California the next week and got 2nd place in Las Vegas. So he looked like he was doing good. Then he went through a cold stretch. 5 straight races where he got 34th, 30th, 29th. A 5th place finish at Richmond, very solid. And then 19th at Martinsville. But then he caught on fire again, going 4th in Bristol, 4th in Talladega, 6th in Dover. After a little blip in Darlington where I believe he had an engine issue that week, he got 2nd in Kansas. Then he got 9th at Charlotte, and he's been consistent since then. He did win most recently, of course, Watkins Glen 2 weeks ago. He kind of pushed Chase Elliott out of the way, which, hey, I cheered for him when he did it. But regardless, he does have the 2 wins, being Watkins Glen and California. Completely different tracks, a road course and a typically Ford-friendly track. So, I mean, it probably worked out for the better for him, but Larson has a real chance to make his name known. Any track that Chase Elliott's good at, Larson's good at. He's a short track racer. The Chevys run well on a lot of these tracks, which include, of course, Phoenix. Any road courses, he's a real threat. Any short track, like I said, intermediate track. Even some race like Talladega, Daytona. He did have the pole at Daytona, so that tells you right there. He's a good driver. He had both poles at Daytona, actually, that's right, but he really didn't do anything to get the pole in yesterday's Daytona race. He just kind of got it because of no qualifying. He had 3 poles, so he's tied for the second most behind Chase Elliott. Good to know. 10 top 5s and 13 top 10s, so he's a real threat. While we are talking about Hendrick Motorsports, we will look at William Byron, who is currently 5th. Now, Byron's been, as you expect with him, hit or miss. He either gets the win or he's outside the top 20. He's arguably the most unlucky driver in NASCAR. Now, you look at his stats here, and, I mean, he got 38th in the Daytona 500, 34th in California, 5th in Las Vegas, 18th in Phoenix. He won the first race in Atlanta, which was an interesting race win because he got into it with Christopher Bell towards the end there, and then Bell did go below the line, so Bell got disqualified, but Byron beat him anyway, so it didn't really matter. And then Circuit of the Americas 12th, Richmond 3rd, Martinsville 1st, but keep in mind, this is April 9th. Since April 9th, he has only had one race in which he got top 10, and that would be the race at Sonoma, which is road course. So Byron is literally the most inconsistent driver in NASCAR. He either gets you the win, or he's basically just missing the top 10, or he's like 30th. So Byron's the type of guy who, his car is better than he is. He's a great player, but it just comes a great driver. But the problem with him is inconsistency, and he's also a very unlucky driver at times. He gets collected in wrecks that aren't his fault. So next we have Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin, just behind William Byron. He also has 2 wins on the year, and he's been doing pretty good. Now, he's the first Joe Gibbs Toyota that we're going to be talking about, so it's always noteworthy. Now, he's had an interesting year. He got collected in an early wreck in Daytona, and then he had a very cold stretch start to the year, where, in fact, let me quickly count this up. In his first 12 races, he only had 1 race in which he finished higher than 13th place. And he won that, and that would be the first race at Richmond. So, 1 win in your first 13, little concerning, but hey, you know what? Whatever, life goes on. Then he got hot, got 4th at Kansas, and won at Charlotte. He did get 2nd in the All-Star race, who cares about that? Doesn't matter. But then he got inconsistent again. And since those 2 wins, I mean, yeah, he has 4 top 10s in that time frame since winning at Charlotte, but you're talking June, July, and August so far. Only 4 top 10s for Denny Hamlin. It's just, as good as Denny is, I don't necessarily think he's going to be a real threat. He will make it somewhat far in the playoffs just because he's a great driver. He's a very competitive driver, and he wants the win. But how far will he go? We'll have to see. Then you get Ryan Blaney in 7th. Now, in the NASCAR playoffs, who did not get a win. So he's the only one to have qualified via points. Now, this is noteworthy, and we'll get to that in a minute, but he would not have qualified under normal circumstances. So we will get to that after I discuss the 16 guys who made the playoffs. So Blaney is Logano's teammate for Team Penske, and he's an interesting driver. So like I said, he hasn't won anything, but he is always up there getting these points. So he got 4th in the Daytona 500, a race where he was running for the win, and his teammate Austin Cindric did kind of block him, and then Cindric didn't make any friends in the Daytona 500, but we'll get to him in a minute, because he also blocked Bubba Wallace towards the end there. But Blaney was very upset with Cindric after that, and he literally refused to acknowledge his win. He's like, yeah, the 2 car kind of blocked us at the end there, and that upset me. I'm like, you don't do that with a teammate. Cindric apologized, but whatever, doesn't matter. And he has a decent amount of top 10s. So Blaney has 3 poles and 8 top 10s, which again, for a guy who doesn't have a win, is impressive. 8 top 5s and 12 top 10s. So you can see Blaney is at least consistent. Compare that to William Byron. So Byron has 2 wins, 4 top 5s, and 5 top 10s. So you can see what I mean when I say Byron is inconsistent. Even Denny's inconsistent. But anyway, Blaney has a real shot. I think Blaney has a chance to be just like Denny Hamlin was last year. He entered the playoffs with no wins, and then he started winning at the right time. It's just unfortunately he didn't make it to the finals. He didn't win in the finals, I should say. But I think he has a real chance to do that this year. Next, we have Tyler Reddick. Now, Reddick is going to be the first of the Richard Childress Racing Chevys that we will be talking about today. And Reddick's an interesting guy. So he entered the season with 0 wins on the year, or in his career. And he did earn his first 2 ever wins. Now, he had a good amount of second place finishes this year. He even had 2 of them. He came second in Bristol, second in Darlington. So you can tell, short track racer. And then he ended up winning the Road America race, which was great for him. Was rooting for him at the end there. Very happy for him. He's a good guy. So then he ended up getting another win at the Indianapolis road course. So you can tell he's the type of driver he's going to get wins at road courses and short track racing. That's how he is. He did get second in Daytona yesterday, but he probably had a chance to win it, but for reasons he didn't, because he didn't want to potentially screw his teammate out of a playoff spot. So you got to respect that. The problem with Tyler Reddick, though, is he's a little inconsistent too. He does have 8 finishes in the top 5 and 11 in the top 10, but I just don't necessarily see him being a threat. I think if he makes it to the round of 12, he will be a threat, but I just don't see him winning in Phoenix. Next, you have Kevin Harvick, the last person to make the playoffs who has multiple wins, so he got 2. Now, Kevin Harvick was a really interesting driver this year. He started off very slowly, and for the longest time, it looked like he wasn't going to be making the playoffs. Now, Harvick on the year has 7 top 5s and 13 top 10s, so he's been consistent. But the issue with him is that his top 5s were usually 4th or 5th. He did have a second place finish at Richmond, so that was a solid finish for him. But unfortunately for him, a lot of his top 10s were also 10th place. Now, he got 5th in New Hampshire. I got to watch that, and I was rooting for him. When he got past, a lot of the fans started cheering. I didn't. I'm like, nah, just whatever. But, you know, he started to feel the pressure once he got into August. He didn't have a win, and with all these new first-time winners, or first winners for the season, he had to worry. He was nervous, and he ends up going out there, goes to Michigan, a very Ford-friendly track, dominates at the end, wins by a mile. Bubba Wallace may have been the fastest car, but Kevin Harvick got the win. Then he would win at Richmond the very next week. So, a hot Kevin Harvick is a guy who I do not want to be on the wrong side of. Now, he got 12th at Watkins Glen, and he got 20th yesterday in Daytona. But he had a real chance to get the win in Daytona. Had he not got collected by, I believe it was Harrison Burton, who was sliding up the track at him, he would have been able to take first place, and he probably would have had a straight gut, gone down the gut, had Austin Cindric, another Ford, pushing him. So, anyways, Kevin Harvick's a real lethal driver. It's just going to come down to, can he maintain being a good driver for long enough? Can he be competitive enough? Will someone like Elliott mess with him because he messed with Elliott last year? Even though Elliott started that whole thing, but whatever. So now we have Christopher Bell. So Christopher Bell is another guy who's very inconsistent like Byron. But he's a guy who, he had an ice-cold start to the year. He did get 10th in Las Vegas, but other than that, his other first 5 starts were all lower than 20. And then he did good at the short track and road courses. Now, he got his only win of the year at New Hampshire. I got to witness it. Always nice to see it. And it's a track that he's always good at. Now, Bell does have 3 poles, so that is noteworthy, but he has 7 top 5s and 14 top 10s. So, again, this is a guy who, Christopher Bell has a chance to make a run this year, and along with his other teammate, Denny Hamlin, he is a Joe Gibbs Toyota. We'll have to see what happens. He might be racing for a seat this year. It really depends on how Kyle Busch's whole situation goes too, but we'll get to Kyle Busch in a split second here. So, Bell, the way the tracks fall, he has a shot to make a run, but I don't see him making a run. Speaking of Kyle Busch, of the Joe Gibbs Toyota family, he is the third Toyota to make the playoffs here. And he had an amazing start to the year, as expected. While he didn't do good in Atlanta or the Circuit of the Americas, he was just a great driver, and that's what you expect with Kyle Busch. Now, he would win the Bristol Dirt Race, and that was a great classic finish. Now, that was a race where Tyler Reddick should have won it. Chase Briscoe took a shot. Unfortunately, ended up wrecking the two of them, and Kyle Busch, quote-unquote, backed into a win. Just, paraphrasing him when he talks about Alex Bowman. Consistent stretch there. He got a couple second-place finishes, a couple third-place finishes. But since Sonoma, so June 12th, since he had a second-place finish at Worldwide Technology the week before, Kyle Busch has been ice cold. He did have a ninth-place finish at Richmond, but other than that, didn't even crack the top 10. So, it's noteworthy. Now, of course, I do have to discuss the elephant in the room, Pocono. He did finish second place due to a penalty because he's not a Chevy team. He did end up getting disqualified, knocked down to 36th. So, that is noteworthy. But he did get 10th yesterday in Daytona. I should have said that is a top 10. So, Kyle Busch, I do not want to be someone going up against pissed off Kyle Busch. That's all I'm going to say. Next, you have Chase Briscoe. So, Briscoe is the definition of one of those drivers who backed into the playoffs. He's probably going to be like Michael McDowell was last year, where he got into the playoffs, but he's not going to do anything. Don't get me wrong, he's a good driver at times, but he had a good finish in the Daytona 500, getting third. Then he won at Phoenix, which was in early March, but since then, he's only had 2 finishes in the top 10, and that would be Martinsville, where he got 9th, and Charlotte, where he got 4th. So on the season, Chase Briscoe has 3 top 5s and 4 top 10s, with his 1 win and 1 pole. So, Briscoe's a good driver at times, but he's so inconsistent. He usually starts in the teens and finishes in the teens. It's consistent like that, but he doesn't get you the wins that you'd want. He doesn't run up front enough. So Briscoe's probably going to be one of the first guys out. Then you have Daniel Suarez. Now, Suarez is a fun one to watch. Oh, my apologies. I didn't even mention. I completely missed it. So for Kevin Harvick, he is a Storehouse Racing Team driver for the Fords, which is always nice. I love them. As is Chase Briscoe. I love how I missed those two. So now we get to Daniel Suarez. Now Suarez is Ross Chastain's teammate for Trackhouse Racing, and he is of course notable because he is the only Mexican-born driver. He might be the only normal Cup Series driver that is not born in the United States. I'd have to double check that. So it's fun to watch him drive, but I just remember he had an interesting start to the year. He did have a 4th place finish in California, 9th place at Phoenix, 4th place in Atlanta. Then he became a little iffy. Did get a top 10, 10th place at Darlington. Then he did end up winning the All-Star race. So that was noteworthy. The All-Star Open race, I should say, so the first race. But he got 5th in the All-Star race. Again, doesn't matter. And he did carry over this momentum when they went to Sonoma, which is a road course. I couldn't watch this race. I didn't have the ability to, but I was listening to his radio because I saw he was up front. Very fun to watch, to listen to him celebrate. He was all excited. You could feel the emotion. And I actually do have a diecast of his car that I had actually purchased just before that race win. So it was pretty fun when that happened. I was like, oh, this is so cool. I just got his car and he just won. That's so interesting. And he has, after that, a 15th finish at Nashville. He did have 4 consecutive top 10 finishes, but since then, he's been a little inconsistent. So he's going to be an interesting guy to watch come playoff time with his 0 poles, 1 win, 6 top 5s, 10 top 10s. He has a chance to make noise. He just has to get hot right now. He cannot afford to have a weak start. Then we get Austin Cindric. Cindric is the 3rd driver for Team Penske, and he is the 3rd Team Penske driver in the playoffs. So just like last year, all 3 Penske Fords made the playoffs. You guys know I had to say that. So Austin Cindric, of course, made noise by winning the first race in Daytona, the Daytona 500. And I mentioned that what he had done is he upset his teammate Ryan Blaney, and he upset Bubba Wallace by blocking Blaney and then kind of pushing Wallace down. But it's racing. It's racing. If the finish line was about maybe even like 20 meters down, Wallace would have won the Daytona 500. If it's how luck goes. But after that for Cindric, he did end up winning the pole the very next week in California, but he finished 12th. And then he got inconsistent a stretch after that with starting in California, going all the way down to the All-Star, through the All-Star race to the Worldwide Technology. He didn't finish. He only had one finish in the top 10, and that would be Circuit of the Americas. But after that, starting at Sonoma, he had 4 consecutive top 10 finishes, including 2 in the top 5. And he did come in second at the Indianapolis Road Course. And he came in third yesterday at the Daytona race, the second Daytona race. He probably could have won that race. He probably should have won that race. I will get into that when I get to Austin Dillon. But I know anyone who is not a Penske fan, anyone who is not a fan of Cindric, will probably say, well, he wrecked 2 guys to get the wins so at the Daytona 500, so he had it coming to him. Fair enough. Cindric is the type of guy who, if he can stay hot right now, he has a real chance to make noise. But he can't have a bad race. He can't have a bad race. It's so close right now at the bottom. Then we have 15th place Alex Bowman. Bowman was a guy who I had in my one fantasy league, so I was kind of rooting for him. And it stunk to root for a Hendrick Motorsports guy, but I never had an issue with Alex Bowman, the hack, if you will. So Bowman's a very nice driver, and it became frustrating to watch him at times, so I could not be a Bowman fan. I'm sorry. It's so frustrating to watch him race because he's such a nice guy. He'll let people go by him and such, and it's like, okay, I see what you're doing, but it's so frustrating. It's like I'm racing against this guy, and you just let him pass you rather than try to block you. Ugh. Anyways, he did get the win at the third race of the year, which would be in Las Vegas, and that was a very interesting race because I was actually going up against Martin Truex that week. I remember that, and Truex was leading the whole race. I didn't watch that race. I was hanging out with my one buddy who was visiting from school from afar, and I just kind of paid attention to it. I was kind of following it, but it was a great race for him. But unfortunately for Bowman, since then, he did come in second at Circuit of the Americas, as I mentioned before. He got 8th at Richmond, and then he had a stretch of 6 races where he got top 10 in 5 of them. So that was noteworthy, but one of them was the All-Star race, so blah. Since then, and the other one was actually Charlotte. The next race was Charlotte where he got 10th, so yes, it does qualify. But since the Charlotte race, so starting June 5th, he only has a single top 10 finish, and that would be 9th at Michigan. So that is concerning. If you are a Bowman fan, he is cold right now. Unfortunately for him, I don't know if he makes a real run this year. Now, the last guy to get into the playoffs was Austin Dillon of Richard Childress Racing. Talk about backing into a playoff spot. He literally had Tyler Reddick blocking for him. He literally pushed Austin Cindric out of the way to get into the playoffs. I know why he did it. I get why he did it. I understand why he did it. I'd be a hypocrite if I defended Cindric but bashed Dillon for doing it. But regardless, Austin Dillon is one of my least favorite drivers. So when he did that to Cindric, I actually stood up because I was sitting down. And I'm like, are you expletive kidding me? What is this guy doing? I was not happy with him. Again, I understand why he did it. I just wasn't happy with him. Austin Dillon is one of the most hated drivers in the sport. Anyone who's met him says he's a bit of a fill in the blank. But he did have a decent year this year. He had some finishes. He got second in California. He got second in the Talladega race. And then he got third in Martinsville. But excluding those, in his win in Daytona yesterday, the guy wasn't doing that much. You look at his stat line here, he has 4 top 5s and 8 top 10s with his one win. So I don't think he's going to be a real factor this year. It's just good for him that he made the playoffs. He did barely miss out last year. He should have made the playoffs. But that last second wreck at Daytona pushes the teammate Tyler Reddick in over him. So, I mean, it was bittersweet for them. But hey, this year Reddick helped him make the playoffs. So those are the 16 guys who qualified. Again, in order: Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Ross Chastain, Kyle Larson, William Byron, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Tyler Reddick, Kyle Busch, Chase Briscoe, Daniel Suarez, Austin Cindric, Alex Bowman, and Austin Dillon. Now there is, of course, one very notable name who did not qualify for the playoffs. Martin Truex Jr. Truex Jr. finished 17th, so he just missed out. And he barely missed out. He missed out by 4 points with Ryan Blaney. And keep in mind, those are 4 places from the start of the year to the end of the regular season. There was that one race, I don't remember the exact race it was, where Truex was racing against Ross Chastain at the end for 5th place. And Chastain kind of pushed him down. It might have been, I don't remember which one it was. It might have been Charlotte. It might have been Dover. It might have been Darlington. But what he ended up doing is Chastain pushed Truex, wrecked him, knocked him down a ton. Had that not happened, had Truex just let Chastain take 5th place from him, Truex would be the playoff driver, Blaney would be in the outside looking in. Just saying. Truex is another guy who I'm personally not a big fan of his, but I know a lot of people love Truex. Is what it is. He's a nice guy, I get that, but I'm just not a fan of him just because he's Joe Gibbs Toyota. So, there's that. He was getting hot, so it is very unfortunate for him. I can't see him playing spoiler, taking a win or two during the playoffs, but we'll have to see what happens with that. Now, other guys who missed the playoffs, first things first, let me discuss Kurt Busch. So, I mentioned with Blaney that he kind of backed into a playoff spot, and that under normal circumstances, he would not be in the playoffs. That is because Kurt Busch did have a win this year. So Kurt Busch had a win in, I think it was Vegas. Let me double check that. Kansas. Now he won at Kansas. And after that win, he looked great. He had his playoff spot locked up. He got 3rd at Worldwide Technology, 2nd at Nashville. But then for qualifying for Michigan, he got into a little bit of an accident. His car spun a little bit. He hit the back of the car hit the wall, and then the front of the car did. He unfortunately suffered a concussion, and he has not raced since. He had a waiver out there saying, yeah, I want to be back in time, but unfortunately concussions are a very iffy subject with everything like that. They're extremely difficult to figure out how long someone's going to be out for, and unfortunately he has yet to return from his concussion, so he pulled his waiver, thus saying, I'm not going to be back for the playoffs, someone else should qualify for it. Because if he didn't do that, what would have happened? It was a very gentlemanly thing to do. Had he not done that, what would have happened is he would still be in the playoffs. Blaney and Truex would both be on the outside, and basically he would just be not racing, so he wouldn't qualify, he wouldn't get points, and he would probably be in the first round elimination. So however far Blaney goes is basically Kurt Busch's last, hey, thank you to Team Penske, even though I know he did not like Penske at the end. But hey, regardless, other drivers of note who did not make the playoffs, of course, I have to discuss Bubba Wallace. I'm not a huge Wallace fan, per se, but Wallace, you got to respect him. He does work. He had a great stretch during this year. He did have a 2nd place finish this year in Michigan. And he's been very consistent of late. He does have 6 top 10s on the year, 4 top 5s. He did have second place finish at the Daytona 500. He did finish just outside the top 10 in yesterday's Daytona race, but he was a lap down. So had there been a wreck, he would have had a chance to win. But still, another wreck, I should say. Bubba Wallace, noteworthy, 23-11 racing. His teammate Kurt Busch should have been in the playoffs. Yeah, it's too bad for him. Other than that, Eric Almirola was supposed to be retiring after this year. Almirola decided to come back. He races for Storehouse Racing, so it's gonna be interesting to see how he does. But now that he's coming back, at least he's not gonna be racing meaningless times for his last hurrah. Eric Jones, Petty GMS Motorsports, good driver. Upset a lot of people yesterday with how he was wrecking people. He wrecked Logano, he wrecked Denny. He didn't necessarily wreck those guys, but he pushed them out of the way and hurt both of their days. He didn't end their days, but he hurt both of them. His car was loose, so good driver, but his car kind of failed him. Already discussed Bubba Wallace. Christopher Buescher, I should say. Inconsistent, but noteworthy. I'm not going to discuss every single guy. Justin Haley looked like he would have a breakout year this year with how he started the year, but he couldn't put it together. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He is what he is. We know what he is. The last guy I'm going to discuss here, Michael McDowell, had 10 finishes in the top 10. So that is noteworthy right there. But unfortunately for him, he couldn't get it done. He didn't have the points to do anything, as he only had a single top 5 finish. But anyways, the NASCAR playoffs are going to be interesting, and I'm really looking forward to how they shape up this year. I will do what I did last year, where I went ahead and after every third race, so after each round, I will discuss how the 3 races went. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I know it's weird that I had a hockey game being simmed in the background, but in case you're just now joining or you didn't hear the beginning, that's because I was unable to get the lovely NASCAR game to work because it would consistently crash my Wi-Fi. So, if I had to predict a winner right now for the NASCAR Cup season, I do, unfortunately for me, think it's going to be Chase Elliott. I think the Final Four will be Chase, Logano. I think Larson will make it. And based on recent performance, I do think there's a real shot for a real wild card to kind of shoot out there. I think it could be Reddick, but I think it could be someone like Denny Hamlin, maybe. He's a real shot in the dark. I think it's most likely going to be maybe Ryan Blaney, too. That last spot's really up for grabs to me. It could be anyone. It could be a Toyota. It could be a Ford. It could be a Chevy. Could be Kevin Harvick with how he's been racing. Right now, I'm going to give it to Harvick, but I don't think he's going to be the one that gets it. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this. This was my first NASCAR video this year, excluding the 2 when I went to New Hampshire. So, have a good rest of your day. Stay safe out there. And hope you guys enjoyed this.